to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. And this was a kind of a rush episode because I slacked last week with my grandson being born. And I usually do these interviews every Monday, and I usually do them a week in advance. And I just totally didn't organize it. And I'm like, I have a commitment to do this every Monday, and I am not going to give up on this commitment. So I was rushing around this weekend after I got home from helping with my grandson, my older grandson, the big brother, the new big brother. So I had been wanting to interview Melanie Moore for a long time. She's been on my list for a long time. And it just came up that let me reach out to Melanie. A friend of mine, we have a mutual friend. She said, you should check with Melanie. She'd do it. And I am so excited to share her with you because she's amazing. Just a little bit about Melanie. She is the UK's leading vision board expert and award-winning coach. She inspires her clients to tap into their big vision. So she's an EFT expert. So if you don't know what that is, listen into this episode and you'll learn. And she gives them mindset tools to change the trajectory of their lives. Very much similar to what I do with visioning, because although I don't have EFT experience, but we both believe that you must have a vision. You must have a future vision that is a big dream that you might not think is possible, but you have to believe that it's possible and that you can have it, that you're limitless, and that nothing in your past is going to prevent you. In fact, everything in your past is going to help you because you have all that wisdom. So she and I are really aligned in our belief around that. She shares some pretty amazing manifestation. She has a great manifestation story that she shares. She's the host of Big Vision TV, and she's the creator of the Transformational Neural Technique, tongue twister. And it's a unique process that clears the past, which then clears the path so that lasting transformation can happen. So I'm going to have her back too, because she does a big 3-day vision boarding workshop in June and January. So we're kind of in the middle of that 6-month time frame. But yes, she's so great and has so much valuable experience. So I can't wait for you to meet her. So let's get to the episode now. Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. And today I have with me Melanie Moore, and she is from the UK. I'm so excited to have her here because she and I think a lot alike about making sure you have visions that you believe in. And what Melanie, she's an expert. She's like the #1 vision boarding expert in the UK, which is kind of cool. And she also integrates tapping with it. And so if you don't know what tapping is, she's going to tell you about it. I have never used tapping or don't know a lot about it. So welcome to the show, Melanie.
Thank you for having me, Laurie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. And we were talking, it was funny because she's a little bit younger than some of the people I have, but she has such value in her knowledge. And so I love to have experts who have knowledge that can help my audience. But also, she looks really young for her age. She's actually said she's 44. And well, you said you're a model in the past. So clearly you do your skin regimen is really, you do something really well. I need to find out what you do with your skin. But anyways, she's got teenagers and like great backstory and how you got into EFT and what you do now, how it's evolved, because we're always evolving. And I love, before we press record, what you said about, you're preparing for life after your kids leave. So a lot of my audience, their kids have left and they're like, what next? And so I love that you have the foresight. You're probably, because you're visioning it, right? So can you just start with kind of who Melanie is, where Melanie was before she got into what she does now? And and then talk
Yeah,
about
sure.
EFT.
Thank you. So I began kind of my career, you mentioned the modeling, as a teenager, really. I was very young when I got started. I was, I think, 15. And I did that right up until I went to university, until kind of like 19, 20. So it was a short, fun career in the modeling world. I was still at school most of the time, so I combined school and modeling. And it was great fun. I was in pop videos. I did, London Fashion Week. I did TV commercials. It was just such fun. It was wonderful. It really was. And then I did journalism at university. And after I graduated, I worked at the BBC for a couple of years on a TV show called Watchdog here. And that was fun as well. But I was a little bit impatient, particularly with income. When you're a graduate and you get a job at the BBC, it's doesn't particularly pay very well. It didn't, certainly back in the late 90s when I graduated. So I was kind of chasing the money at that age, and I then just decided to completely switch tactics, and I went for a career in recruitment and headhunting. So I spent 10 years commuting, doing the commute to London, into the city, and that took me up until I got married and had children. And when my second child was born, my daughter, I've got a son and daughter. My son is 16 and my daughter Bonnie is 13. By the time Bonnie came along, I realized I wanted to stay at home and be with my children. And that for me was my vision. That was my big vision. I know that children grow up so fast, and I didn't just want to be a stay-at-home mother, though. I wanted to have some sort of business as well. And I'd never been a business owner. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. All I did know is that I had big interest in holistic therapies, in alternative healing, in psychology. I was well on the way in my personal development journey. And I think this kind of all kick-started for me. It kind of happened with a bit of spiritual awakening as well when I was pregnant with my son. So he's 16 now. So when I was pregnant with him, I again, I guess this is my first example of visualizing and manifesting what I wanted into my life. Before I got pregnant, my view of childbirth was that it's difficult, it's traumatic, it's painful. My mum had had me by a cesarean, quite complicated, and I was surrounded by friends who'd had difficult births, and I just thought that's what it is. But then the
Yeah,
book
and
came
don't
into
you
my
find, like, when you're pregnant, people say, "Oh, let me tell you this, what happened to me," and then they're like, you're like, "Can you save that story till after I have the baby?" It's like they tell you the worst nightmare
I
stories.
know.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. So I was expecting it to be horrible, but then this book came into my life, and I do believe in divine timing, that this book came into my life for a reason. It's called The Gentle Birth Method. And I've been reflecting on this quite a lot recently, because what the book did was it completely changed my beliefs around childbirth. It was written by a lady called Gauri Motha, and she was an obstetrician, a gynecologist who worked in India, and one of the poorest countries in the world. And then she came to work in the UK, supposedly a wealthier nation, and she couldn't understand why women in the UK were really struggling to give birth, whereas back in India, she said women gave birth in the morning and they were back working in their paddy fields later that same day. But here, women were having very long drawn out labors, and everything she read made sense. But what she did was she recommended all these things to have the gentle birth experience. So I thought, okay, that's what I want. I'm going to do what she says. And that included going to yoga, which I think awoke me spiritually. I love yoga, but I'd never done yoga till then. So I did pregnancy yoga. The book came with a visualization as well, a CD that I had to listen to every day to visualize my body being an optimum, place to give birth, my uterus being soft, and, everything opening and dilating. So it was all kind of subliminal, but I listened to this CD religiously, for the last trimester of my pregnancy. And
That's
what she also
amazing, and
did.
I was also gonna ask you
Mm,
when, because sometimes we think it's too late into the pregnancy to start something, but it sounds like
yeah, it was.
yeah,
I think it's the last trimester I released it,
yeah.
and then it was really when I went on maternity leave. So I only had about 6 weeks left. That was when I really listened to it every single day. And and she also said, write out a plan for what you want your birth to be like. So I wrote it out. Da, 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 da. This is what I want. Lo and behold, when I had my son, I ended up having a water birth, no drugs,
Oh my gosh.
really gentle,
I got
exact.
chills. That's
Yeah.
so
And
amazing.
so she shifted my beliefs around pregnancy, but I also took the action. I changed my diet. She recommends this Ayurvedic diet, cutting out sugar and all. Whereas here, when you're pregnant, the doctors don't tell you what to eat. They don't, here we have this saying, oh, I'm eating for two now. So it's like, oh, I'll have that second slice of cake. And um, so I did what was recommended in the book. And I didn't realize I was also visualizing the experience I wanted as well. And it's really, really powerful. And I think that's what kickstarted things for me without even realizing. I kind of went off it for a little while. Just obviously, then I did the same for my daughter, and again, an even easier experience. And so, yeah, that was my first diving into the world of this kind of holistic stuff. So, yeah, so what came next was, by the time my daughter came along, I knew this was it. I wanted to leave the corporate career because I was still combining the two at the time. So I trained as a Reiki practitioner, and
Mm-hmm.
then I decided to do a course in reflexology as well. So I decided, right, I'm going to start my own business, and I'm going to help women with childbirth, because I just had this amazing experience myself. It was fresh for me, and that's what I did. And I started my holistic therapy practice.
So let
But
me,
actually,
I'm going
that
to
I should,
take you, I'm going to go
yeah.
back. So if your daughter is
Okay.
13 and we're in 2021, so we're talking
Hmm.
like 2008-ish. And I'm thinking about
Yeah.
when my
Yeah.
kids were born, because I have a little funny
Hmm.
entrepreneur story. But so I was the same. As I was working a job, and when I got pregnant, I was like, oh, I'm going to go back to my job when I have the baby. And then when I had her, and the day I only could take 5 weeks off because I couldn't afford to, they didn't have maternity leave. So I had took
Mm.
her to a babysitter, and I remember handing her over and thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this. So I went to work and I said, can I work part-time so I can be home with my baby part of the time? And they said no. So I said, okay, I quit. So I actually quit my job. And so then I
Mm.
I was like, well, how am I going to bring in income? But we didn't have the internet then, because this is like 1982. So I ended up making bibs. I didn't even know how to sew, but I figured it out, and I started to like sell bibs, but not very successfully. But it's so funny that like the difference in time and the opportunities that are kind of available. Now, was your business that you started, was that I went to a craft fair and I sat at a table with like my bibs. So
Mm.
what was like how did you set it up? Did you actually have an office, or did you do it out of your
I
house, or did you do it on the
I did
internet,
it
or what?
out of home. I did it from
Okay.
home. So because I'd had Reiki and reflexology treatments during my pregnancy, I thought, I love this. I'm going to do the same. But I want to share, and this is kind of a little segue, but it is a really fun story. Because here's the thing, I think a lot of us, at whatever stage of life we're in, we want to do things, but then we're tripped up by the how. How am I going to do this?
Yes.
Quite often it's financially related. So for me, I wanted to leave my corporate career, but it's like, well, how am I going to supplement the income? How am I just going to bring that money? So I already thought I'll start up my own business. But here's the other thing. On my first day of my reflexology training, I was introduced to the book The Secret. Have you read it,
Ah.
Laurie? Have
Yes,
you?
and it was around that time, because I was going through a divorce, and I read The Secret, and it was around, Oprah introduced it to me, as she did a
Yeah.
lot of things, like Eckhart Tolle too.
Yeah.
But it was like probably 2006. I read the book like
Yes.
very early on. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. I read it a couple of years. It'd been out a couple of years at that
Yeah.
point. So I did
Hmm.
my reflexology training. I think it was 2008, 2009. So we were told that actually, to set some intentions for ourselves, what do you want? And, to put it out to the universe. So I started experiment with some small things. And then I thought, okay, what I really want is to leave my job. Funnily enough, the universe responded by I got made redundant from my job. I got a great, redundancy package, which was wonderful. So already, so be careful what you ask for. So, but
And how
I was really
quickly
pleased.
did that happen? Did that happen pretty quickly?
Within 3 or 4 months, I think. But I
Mm,
kind of already was putting it out there that
right.
I
Hmm.
knew. But the thing that I really wanted to manifest was a windfall of money that would ha- give me financial security, so that I could launch my business and not feel under any pressure to bring money in quickly. So I just put it out there, and I'll tutor gave us a bit of a formula to write down exactly what you want. So I did. And I remember exactly, because I wrote it in a journal. I found it recently and I ripped it out and I kept this thing that I wrote. It says, I'm happy, ready, and open to manifest £20,000 into my life. And I'm open to it coming from any source. So I put out this thing to the universe. I want £20,000. And then, I started thinking, well, how can I bring £20,000 into my life? Because I do think we have to take some action.
Mhm.
Now, the only way then that I could think of that money coming to my life was by going on a game show. And if you were to ask me today, how could I bring 20,000? I could list 101 ways in which I could bring £20,000 into my life. But the only way I could see it was being on a game show. Now, during the final months of being in the corporate job, I used to drive past the studios every day where Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was filmed. And I'm a Pisces, so I'm a natural daydreamer. And every day I would imagine being on the show. I'd drive past, I would visualize being sat on a hot seat. And it felt so real. This was my vision board driving past the studios every day. I sat in front of Chris Tarrant, who's the show host, and I would imagine what it'd feel like to be in the studio, being really nervous, climbing up the money ladder. And I guess you've seen Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, haven't you? It's in the US.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So then, okay, next question is, how do I get on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I'm still in, right, I've got to take action if I want this to become a reality. So I remember being in the office at work, typing out, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? How do you become a contestant? And it turned out there were auditions coming up. So I submitted the application form and I got invited for an audition. And anyway, to cut a really long story short, I got invited on the show and I got in the hot seat and I won £20,000, which was the exact amount of
Exactly.
money.
Oh my God,
And
that is
this took
crazy.
place about 3 months. So I got made redundant in the October, and this whole application process of the show took about 3 months, and the show was recorded, I think, in January of
Yeah, I think
that
when
year.
and tell me if you agree or how you differ maybe in your thought process here, but like for me, when you were saying you manifested something, it's not like manifest and then like sit and twiddle your thumbs. Your brain starts you said
Mm.
the how.
Yeah,
We let go of the how, but
yeah,
our brain starts to try to connect the dots for us and
yeah.
it starts to find ways.
Ultimately,
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, ultimately, the vision was to stay at home with my children and to start up my own business. Yeah, I did. I guess I'm contradicting myself slightly when I say focus on that because I was so detached from the outcome. I
Yeah.
wasn't sitting there thinking, I've got to get on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I've got to get.
Right.
But it was, what you focus on does expand, and if you channel all your
Yeah.
efforts down one path, you are so much more likely to hit your target. At that time, I
Mhm.
couldn't see any other way of that money coming into my life. So that was my path to
Well, it's interesting because I
the
feel
outcome.
like there were 2 manifestations that coincided. It
Mm,
was like you were wanted to manifest the 20,000 pounds, but you wanted to manifest the game show, and they kinda,
mm,
like, worked together, whereas I feel
yeah,
like if you just manifested and you maybe didn't have that desire to do the game show, something else
mm,
would have happened, you would have met
possibly.
somebody
Yeah.
along the way
Mm.
that, presented some kind of opportunity. Yeah, it's just that's so crazy. What a crazy great story. Love that.
It's a crazy story. So I do believe it was a conscious manifestation. I deliberately created that experience. When I look back on the steps that I took, I thought, what are the chances of that happening? So
Mm.
so yeah, so that kind of gave me the financial, cushion that I wanted I could get a website, I could get some marketing materials, and so that's when I launched my therapy business.
And do you feel
So
too that there's
mm,
there's an alignment thing going on? Like you were following like what kind of what your heart was leading you to follow, and so
absolutely.
it was like
Yeah,
I feel like manifestations actually come true when you're really aligned.
totally. I was so in alignment with what I wanted, and
Mhm.
really there was no way I could miss out on raising my children.
Mhm.
That was for me was a goal, and the the business I did, it worked brilliantly because, I did it while the children were at school. I fitted it in, I just fitted it around them. And it was enough of a business at the time. My husband was then the breadwinner in the house. And so yeah, so it was a small business. I wasn't making loads of money, but it was enough to keep me occupied and have a
I can't
sense of
well, yeah, and
purpose.
I like to think because with working with people who are in their 50s and their 60s, to me, it's like what I always try to tell them, and they start to understand once they hear it is and they look at it from a different perspective is a lot of times they come into it, oh, it's too late. I've wasted so much
Mm.
time, and it's an evolution. So like for you, was an to me just the beginning of the journey of evolvement and then getting into EFT, then getting into
Yeah,
vision boarding. And it's just like all that, those lessons and that experience, and it's leading to you to the next thing. There's like never an ending. It's just like a
it's not.
continuation of,
Mm.
so tell me about how you got into EFT. And that's called, what
So
does that stand for? So,
EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. So at the time, I was working with women on their pregnancy journey, and I discovered this. I learned about it during the reflexology course, but because I was so focused on reflexology at the time, funnily enough, I came across it through some YouTube videos because I was looking for some alternative remedies to help with, these migraines I was experiencing every month, with hay fever, seasonal allergies I was getting. And I discovered that EFT could be really good for physical symptoms. So because I tried it, and so what EFT is, let me just describe very quickly. It's a cross between acupuncture and modern day psychology, but as we stimulate these acupressure points on our face and our upper body, these relate to traditional Chinese medicine, which are acupressure points, which are related to certain ailments, parts of the body, but also some different emotions as well. And I was doing this tapping to get rid of these physical things. And I was just amazed at how effective it was. So I decided to train to become a practitioner. And what I did was I incorporated it into my therapy practice. And I was helping women to relieve their anxiety around childbirth. And I was finding that EFT was so much more effective than the other things I was doing that it quickly became my main thing. But then I discovered that EFT was also amazing for not for releasing our limiting beliefs as well around manifestations, because what I was also doing on the side was these vision board workshops because I'd read The Secret and I'd been manifesting all this cool stuff through visualization, and there's a whole chapter in The Secret on vision boards. I thought, wouldn't it be great to get, and it was just my existing client base at the time, to say, let's get together in a group, we'll make vision boards. Another time I didn't really know what I was doing. It was just come along, stick out pictures of your dream home, your kitchen, the holidays you want to go on, and that's all it was. So I started doing them, must be nearly 10 years ago. So I was doing it alongside the therapy business, but it's my first experience of running workshops and doing the one-to-many approach. And it was around, yeah, so shortly after that, there was problems in my marriage, and very sadly and marriage came to an end about 6 years ago. And I'd reached this kind of crossroads in my life, and I often talk about the crossroads, that it was like, okay, I have my own business here, but it wasn't really enough to sustain, the living expenses, to pay the mortgage and all that other stuff. So I had to make a decision, do I go back to my old corporate career, or do I grow my business? Do I take it to the next level? And this is when I started investing in coaches and mentors. And um, and again, I then set my intention. I didn't, again, this is how I didn't know anything about having an online business. Everything was in person. My client base was probably about a 30-mile radius of, I live about 20 miles north of London. Um, and I just said to myself, I want to create a global business, but I had no idea how it's going to happen. So that was kind of the next chapter of my business evolution.
What do you think separates you from the people who want that, but then the fear overtakes them and stops them? What do you think? Do you think it's because you had evidence in the past that you don't need to know the how and you kept reminding yourself of that? Or is it because your vision was so great that you were like, I'll just figure it out?
The thing is, as I said, I'm a Pisces. I've always been a big dreamer. I've always, you know, and I remember my dad when I was growing up. He wrote these words on my bedroom wall: "I can and I will." And I
Mm,
grew up seeing those words every day.
yes,
And actually, I
powerful.
still, yeah, I have it on my wall. Actually, where's it gone? Oh, it's
Yeah, because
just
I
behind
think
me.
dreamers
Mhm.
sometimes can get stuck in dreaming. So the
We
fact that you
can,
had that, yeah.
yeah. So where's actually? I was doing a little
That Will
um
Smith does a thing too. He's got great when it comes to that
oh,
stuff.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I wrote this down actually because I was just doing a group coaching call with my members yesterday, and yeah, there was a really good thing about this. Is it says, obviously we talk about vision. You've got to start with the end in mind, and our vision can change depending on what stage of life we're at. So,
Mhm.
when my children were born, my vision was nothing more than be able to take them to school every day and attend sports days. I didn't have any vision of having a global online business at that point. I think the more you immerse yourself in personal development, the more you surround yourself with people who are doing incredible things, and when you start seeing what's possible for other people, you then realize if they can do it, then I can too. And it's just a question of, making sure you surround yourself with the right people, get the coaching and the mentoring when you need to, be willing to learn and grow and be coachable. And, you know, all of this online stuff. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not a technical person. What's a landing page? What do you mean? What is this? And it was like, oh my goodness. So what you were saying about daydreaming, it's so true. And I think maybe I did spend a lot of years in daydreaming mode, but I really, and I know you've got to take action as well. So it's, start with the end in mind. And the question I think to ask yourself is, are the daily choices I'm making facilitating the outcome that I desire? And the thing is, if your daily choices aren't in alignment with the outcome you want, it's just daydreaming. It really is down to the choices and what we decide to do with our time every day. But it can be in alignment and it can be fun as well. So, it's really setting my intention that I'm in the right place at the right time. All the help I need is available to me. I'm open to learning. I tell myself I'm a quick learner, whereas we are the stories that we tell ourselves. And if we tell ourselves, oh, I'm too old, or I've missed the boat, my ship has sailed, that's a language we need to start reframing and telling ourselves a better story of what we want.
Yeah,
So
and I think it's interesting because people always too think like that, like they think a big vision and then they think I have to take a big step. And it doesn't
mm,
have to be a big step. And you say
mm,
like do something that like takes you closer to that, but it also has to be something like you said, alignment means something that lights you up to do it. Because I think
mm,
a lot of people are like, I should do that, so I have to do this, and then they're doing actions that are like, ugh, it's draining them instead of
mm,
lighting them up. And so even if it's just like, I need to learn this and that excites me, that's a step, learning something. It starts with the learning and then I like to say the fog clears, right? The more you
yeah.
learn about what lights you up, the
Hmm.
more the fog clears, the more the clarity comes, and then you see what the next step is. It's like you're in this fog and there's these steps going up to nowhere, and then like you can't really see the step, but then you take one, you see the one in front of you, and then the fog clears. But yeah, so I totally agree with you. And so many people I think take misaligned steps or no steps at all.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So it is getting clear on, what you want. And I knew that I wanted to take the business online. It was basically a matter of, I want to grow. I need to create, um, more income. And I could see that the one-to-many model was a much better way to leverage my time. So it was then a case of, okay, how do I take these vision board workshops to the masses? How do I, get more people to come to a workshop? And then ultimately, 3-4 years ago, I then did my first online vision board workshop, just using Facebook Live, doing private Facebook groups. Now I use Zoom. And the beauty of it is that, people can attend from anywhere in the world.
Mhm.
And I around similar time, I stopped my one-to-one business. And beginning of last year, I launched a membership community as well. So it is that whole leveraging the use of your time. And I think when you do get a bit older, I think the thing that becomes easier is just letting go of the fear of what people think. That whole you know it's just like, I'm just going to go for it now, because I think that comes certainly as I got into my 40s. I realized, actually, do you know what, I really don't care what people think anymore. And I've heard that apparently when you get to 50, that almost disappears. So um
Well, I don't think it disappears, but I think what happens is
mm,
that we start to see, what if I get to the end of my life and I haven't done what I want to do? You start to
exactly.
think about your legacy more. And I think your
mm,
legacy that feeling overrides your
mm,
feeling about what other people think. And when it gets to the point where it totally overrides it, then you step more into the fear. But I still think there's in some people to more degree than others, but once they let go of that and focus on the legacy, it's just magic.
Absolutely, totally. And I read a blog post many years ago which had a huge impact on me. It was The Five Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware.
Mm, mm,
And I think the biggest regret, she was a palliative care nurse, worked with people at the end of
mm.
their lives. And
Yes.
she interviewed them, and the biggest regret is that they lived a life what other people expected of them, not the life that they truly wanted to. I think, gosh, to get to the end of your life with regret is
Right.
just dreadful.
Yeah.
And I think it's never too late. It's a great C.S. Lewis quote. You're never too old to have a new goal, or to set a new goal, or to dream a new
New
dream, I
dream.
think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons my life changed, is because I started to see me at the end of my life. My husband was somebody that I fell in love with when I was 18, and
Mm,
we broke up when I was 20, and or I broke up with him for good reason. But I thought about him a lot through my life, and I felt like there were a lot of things that were left unsaid. And I
mm-hmm,
felt like, the door was never completely closed, it was, like, left open a crack. And I always had this, thing where, I needed to, like, completely close that door. For me, it was more about
mm,
closing the door, not opening it wide and stepping in. But I kept
yeah.
thinking about laying on my deathbed and thinking, I wished I had, like, just finished that. I wish I had just had closure on that.
Mm-hmm,
And that's what made me take that step. And like, you know, I went with the intent of closing that door, and it opened wide open and changed my life. So, yeah,
mm,
so I so totally agree that, you got to think about what you don't want. And but the thing is about when you're thinking about, fear of judgment or what other people think, for me, I choose to think, or I choose the thought of, it's more important what my grandchildren think than what somebody who doesn't even know me thinks. I can handle somebody being critical of me on the internet, but I want my grandchild to see somebody who is going after what she wants and living life to the fullest. That's what I want. That's what I want my legacy to be. And so when you kind of focus on the people that are going to judge you, don't even know you, uh, then it kind of helps and free those thoughts or get rid of those thoughts, right? Think about the impact you want to make. And it doesn't involve those people that you're worried about who are judging you. It's
totally.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah.
So you do challenge, I know, tapping into your big vision, right? Is that something that you do periodically throughout the year, or is that a
Um
workshop that people can buy, or how does that work?
So so I do the vision board workshops twice a year in January and June, and these are live 3-day events where I take people through a process. As you know, I said, I've been doing these vision boards for nearly 10 years now. I've been featured in the national press. I do corporate workshops as well. You know, it's transcended beyond the world of, you know, just woo woo kind of stuff, where, you know, the largest workshop I did was for 100 people for a publishing company. And you know, Daily Mail, biggest newspaper in the UK, came to one of my workshops and wrote a feature on the power of vision boards. So as I've refined the process, I've realized it was a lot more than just cutting out pictures and sticking them on a piece of card, because, you know, seriously, anyone can do that. But it's kind of a bit of a stab in the dark. So the first step I take people through is to get really clear on what they want, their heart's desires. And I take them through kind of a meditation process. We tap into this. We use EFT to
Mm,
basically uncover some of the things that we you know, that we've buried. And a lot of the time, you know, we bury this stuff from childhood, adolescence, stuff that we things we've always wanted to do. So I'm planning to do a skydive soon. I've always wanted to do a skydive. And that's just come to me quite recently. And I thought, you know, why on earth not? I'm going to do that.
yes,
But anyway,
I actually I used to never wanna do that. I got my
yeah,
pilot's license when I was 21, so
amazing.
I'm
Yeah.
not afraid of little planes, but when I think
Mm.
about jumping out, that's kinda scary, but for some reason, it came up for me last year, and I was like, "I need to do this," and then somebody was like, "Why would
Yeah.
you ever do that?" And so that, like,
Mm.
gave me fear, but oh, have you ever seen the YouTube video? I have to share this. There's a YouTube video of James Corden
Uh-huh.
going on his first skydive
No, I haven't seen that.
With Tom Cruise.
Oh, actually, no, I have
It
seen
is
that. Yes. Yeah.
hilarious, hilarious.
Yeah.
It's like 11 minutes. I've watched it
Mm.
like 5 times. It's so funny,
Oh,
and showed it to
I
other
got to
people.
rewatch it.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
so
definitely
okay,
going to do it.
you're gonna go skydiving, all right.
Yeah, so I take people through the process, you know, get clear on what are these things that you still, you know, want to do. And it could be around launching a business, or it could be traveling, or around those 4 pillars I mentioned. So I talk about the pillars of abundance, of your health, of your environment, and of your relationships. You know, it could be that I'm ready just to manifest the most extraordinary relationship ever, because I think relationships are important as well. So, you know, whatever is important. And this comes up during the first part of the process before anyone gets anywhere near a pair of scissors and glue. And so we do that the day before or a few days before. And then the next step is to actually make the vision boards. But I take people through a letting go process. What do you need to release? You know, energetically, who do you need to forgive? What old stories about yourself do you need to let go of? Then you make the vision board. And that's the fun part. We do this collectively as a group, because I get people to share their boards. And the final part is the following day. I call it the vision embodiment process, where we step into the vision of the future you. And I do this through my meditation process as well. I call it the TNT process. It's cross between tapping and visualization, transformational neural technique, which is a process that I've trademarked and I've
Oh,
made
cool.
it my own. Yeah. And so that's kind of the last step in it, you know. Then I give people this tapping script where they use the script whilst, you know, sitting in front of their vision board to really, a bit like what I did with being on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You know, I imagined what it'd be like in the studio. I visualized how it would feel. I felt the nervousness in my body, because that is the living the future in advance. And because your imagination doesn't know if it's real or if it's false. And
Yeah.
when we can embody that with all our senses, um, that's how things manifest even faster. So yeah, through just everything I've learned and discovered, um, I brought this kind of into a process. So
I'll
yeah,
have
so
to have
that's
you
what I.
back. So if you do it in January and June, I'll have to have you back right before you do it in June so we can talk about it and let my audience know about it. So that would be fun.
Oh, I
Are
love
you
that.
doing a challenge coming up? I thought I saw something where you're doing a declutter challenge. Just how can
Oh,
people
so
like
yes,
follow up
so
with
that's
you? We'll put
so
on the
that's
show
my
notes like your social stuff, but what
so
else?
my members community.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's so I'm doing that in my membership community, tapping into a big
Okay.
vision members community. So we've got a
Uh-huh.
decluttering challenge in March, and we've got an abundance challenge in April.
Okay.
So the idea really is that you create a vision board first, and then if you need support and the ongoing of, you know, to make your vision board, because that's the thing, it's so easy
Ah,
to make a vision
yeah.
board and to lose
Tuck it
momentum
away.
and taking
Yeah.
action. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I love
so
that.
yeah, but I've got a free gift for you, members of your community, if they want to take
Oh,
action now. It's
awesome.
Future You. I've given you the link. The Future You meditation. It's just to take you a little journey into the future now, to start maybe unlocking things that might have been buried in your subconscious
Awesome.
mind
I
for a
do
long
one
time.
of
So
those, so I'm interested to hear yours too. We can
yeah,
compare,
and there's
see.
some
Yeah.
tap. Yeah, and there's some tapping
Oh,
exercise as well.
good.
So
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, and so the exercises you say like tap here so you know where to tap and everything when you
So
do
yeah,
it?
it's just literally,
Okay.
it's one of those, you tap along with me. I've got a YouTube channel as well, that has lots of tapping videos so that
Okay.
you can see how it works.
Oh,
So
amazing.
and there's all sorts of tapping videos for, having a good night's sleep, insomnia, for releasing sugar cravings, for tapping away anxiety, tapping for a great start to the day,
Well,
tapping.
yeah,
I've
and we
just
probably you need some menopause ones. Get tapping to
I
get rid of the
probably,
hot
yeah,
flashes. Because I
from
know, oh, those were
yeah.
terrible for me. I'm over them now, but
Mm,
they were bad, like keeping me up at
really.
night. Yes, really
I'm actually
bad.
doing the prep work. I'm looking into all sorts of alternative things when it comes to menopause. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
preparing. I'm getting
Yeah.
ready for the next stage of my life. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah. Yeah, I
I'm
love
looking forward
how
to the
yeah, how you're talking about, like, what's next after the kids go off, and
yeah.
you're well situated because you're
Mm,
plus you know how to make those things happen. That's so incredible, so incredible. Yeah, so thanks for your great examples of how people can manifest what they want in their lives, because just having, like, an example that people are like, "Oh, man, I need to do that." People just think, "Oh,
mm,
that doesn't work," and it's clear that it works, and I think once you have a little small manifestation that happens, then it's like, "Oh my god," like, you do a bigger one, do a bigger one.
yeah,
So, I
exactly.
yeah.
It's fun. It's like, it is like life is a big, catalog. It is
Mhm.
choosing, what do I want next to experience? How do I want to feel? And I think ultimately what we want are feelings, and really the biggest goal of all is happiness.
Yeah.
What can I do to bring more joy into my life? That's really what living is all about.
Yeah. So do you think, as we say goodbye for this episode, what is the one action that you think people should take that would make a big difference?
I would tune in, take some time out, and to ask yourself the question, what is it my heart and soul really desire in this lifetime? And just sit with that question for a few minutes a day. Because we've got to take some time out. Our lives are so busy and noisy that we don't ever take time to ask that question, what do I really, really want? What do I want the most in this
Yeah.
life? And allow the
Yeah,
answers to
and
come.
without the restrictions that our current life has,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Like
If money were no object,
if money were no object, if where I lived was no object, if who I lived
mm,
with was no object, just like yeah.
exactly. And start to journal and allow those desires to come up to the surface.
Mhm.
And you might write out all sorts of things, and then but something's going to leap out, or you felt, I need to do that.
Yeah.
And you can't ignore those whispers. And so yeah, I would just really recommend spending, is nothing more important than getting clear on what you want. But then once you get clear, working with you and and your advice and the wisdom, that people can start, that it's never too late to get
Yeah.
started. And because we've just got one stab at this, and
Yeah, I had
let's just
somebody
do
in
it.
one of my groups recently say, and it was like so touching to me. She said, I believe in eternal life. And she said, and I always thought not in this life, but in next life. So she believed in eternal life, but she was using it as an excuse not to live this life to its fullest. And I
Yeah, I
thought,
wasn't going to go there.
wow,
And I wasn't going to
wow.
start mentioning past, because I have the same belief, but equally
Yeah,
it is, we do
yeah,
have to take action now.
yeah.
And
Why
yeah,
not,
no
right?
hanging
To make this
around,
one the
no hanging
best.
around.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And you take the what you learn here into the next life. So like, why not?
Okay.
You'll learn it and
Mm,
then you'll be that
mm,
much ahead of yourself, right, in the next one. So,
mm.
all right. Well, thanks so much. So happy that you were able to jump on here. As I'll just you can be real open to everybody. They know I became a grandma last week. And so I kind of slacked on getting a guest. And I've been wanting to interview Melanie, and she was so nice to jump in here very quickly and hop on board and do an interview. It's been delightful. So we'll have to get back
Absolute
on
pleasure.
before your
Yeah, I
next.
believe in
Okay.
divine timing. It was meant to
Yes,
happen today.
yes, I bet.
Thank you
Oh,
so much for having me.
okay. Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraverage.grandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own, not your average life.